today it's actually two lawyers and a financial advisor walk into a bar.
No.
Lucky you.
Lucky us. So today we are joined by a very special guest, Fotini Kypraios from Prisma Legal. She is a lawyer that I've known for many years, but Fotini works with clients and their businesses strategically and proactively, providing a unique opportunity to engage with her as a trusted and integral part of their advisory team. Fotini is also the chair of the board of the Hellenic Australian Chamber of Commerce, or HUCI, as a lot of people like to refer to it as, and is a sessional supervisor at Monash University Law School, Startup and Innovation Law Clinic. And here's an interesting one that a lot of people wouldn't know. Fotini is fluent in Greek, proficient in English, in German, and clearly speaks English. So three languages. Fotini has also recently been entrusted with the role of the inaugural chair of the B Council for B Lab Australia and New Zealand. And today we're going to learn more about B Corp. So Fotini, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I feel privileged to have access to the bar.
Well,
yeah, we like to get as many guests as we can, because otherwise this is Dave and us and Dave and me, and it's pretty boring, frankly.
Yeah, but we're not sure how much hot air there's going to be in the room with two lawyers. That's probably the biggest challenge to start with.
Well, let's discuss it now, Alex. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, I've got a lot of questions about B Corp. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's about. I don't know why people do it. I don't know what the advantages are. I don't know what's involved. I've got absolutely no idea about B Corp. So I'm very happy to have you here, Fotini, to answer my questions. I'm sure a lot of business owners, some people wouldn't have heard of it at all, I think, and some people would have heard of it, but I don't think many people would know what it's about. I sort of got the impression B Corp meant just being a generally good citizen, and I'd like to think we all do that. But I assume there's an audit and a whole bunch more involved than just being a nice person. Tell us about what's B Corp generally.
So B Corp is a certification, and it's an internationally recognised certification. B Lab Australia and Aotearoa New Zealand started here in 2013. And essentially they did that to build on a movement that had recently started in the US at that time. And they're seeking to redefine what success in business is. And essentially you'll hear a lot about using business as a force of good in B Lab circles and on posts, etc. So there are over 6,000 certified businesses that are B Corps all over the world in about 150 industries, and they employ about 400,000 people internationally. And there's more than 500 of them now here in Australia and New Zealand. So it's really about businesses that have gone through a pretty stringent certification process. It took me on and off, because I stopped and started a couple of times, about 18 months all in all. And that certification process puts you through a process whereby you have to show that you're meeting really high standards of environmental performance, accountability and transparency. And essentially it's about businesses that ensure they're making a positive impact. So it's not just looking at profit and not just looking at certain other things that are traditionally the drivers of businesses saying they're doing good. It's actually holding you accountable to, you're measured across 5 areas. So those 5 areas are employees, customers, environment, governance, and community. So it's really about testing you across all of those areas, if you like. And it's like a survey or questionnaire kind of certification process. And then once it's called it's an impact assessment essentially. Once you get through that process, you then go on and lodge an application, and then that's gone through again the second person looking through my answers and my documentation that you have to provide, evidence of all the things that you're doing was based overseas. So it makes you look at the back end of your business really consciously, and it makes sure that you're doing what you say you're doing. So that whole purpose washing that we hear about, this is a good stamp to have, or this is good for my brand. It's very difficult to do this with the B Corp certification, because you have to provide evidence of what you're doing. So the process helps you examine every aspect of your business and right up your supply chain through to your customers, your processes, your governance. And you then, it was an interesting process for me because I'm a small law firm. And then you think of the process I went through, and then large organizations like, for example, T2 or a B Corp or ASOP, they've got to go right through their entire supply chain and be completely transparent about who they're doing business with and the processes through which they create an impact with everything they do within their business and around their business. So it's a real documentation.
So that's a very onerous thing to
Yeah.
put one onto the organisation. So clearly it's picking up both services and product delivery businesses. So how do some people react to that when they're being challenged?
Yeah.
To give evidence on their supply chain? Because I mean, you'll get some people go, you know what, it's all too hard. I'm not going to keep delivering or supplying to you on that basis. I mean, are you seeing and have you had an experience where some people have said, I'm not going to provide that information, therefore you've got to sever that relationship?
Personally, no. I mean, I think because there's so much integrity around this certification, and because the people, it's a commitment to do it. I mean, as I said, I'm a small boutique legal practice, and it took a lot of work and effort. And I imagine you'd have a number of staff members allocated to this process, because you not only have to get there, you have to recertify every 3 years and improve your score. So, for example, we had to create.
So there's an expectation that you actually improve on the previous qualification period.
Yeah, it's a real commitment, and that's why it's got the credibility that it does, and that's why it's important. It's a continued improvement. So it's not, if anyone's out there to sort of get the stamp and use it for marketing, and this is not that.
Well, we see that all the time, especially around people being clean and green, or alleging that they're clean and green, and then they get in trouble from the regulator that actually they're not. And just because you put some gum leaves on your package doesn't make you Australian, and it doesn't make you green. So it's not that. Have you had negative fallout from it? I know that's what that Dave was asking our suppliers. I know we've got to say we use some barristers, right? Some barristers are very modern, and you send them a brief and they it's all electronic and everything's fine. But there's some more old-fashioned barristers who you need to print everything out and send it to them in big clipboards, and then they probably throw it away or they lose it. You send them another copy and they lose that. And so they're very paper-intensive. So that doesn't seem very environmental to me, and it's just an example that jumped to mind. Would I have to stop using them, or would that, how does that all sort of work in practice?
Oh, look, for example, on my legal, we're all in the cloud. We're electronic, completely electronic, and recently became carbon positive, and I went through that process again. And you think, well, if everything's in the cloud and I'm an online business, surely I'm automatically, but you're not. There's the impact of everything you do. But in terms of customers or clients or suppliers, I've had no negative pushback at all, because what it is, it's not that you're imposing this on who you're doing business with. It's actually a reflection of how you're doing business and how you're creating an impact. So the people that you're engaging with, your stakeholders and clients, are people that are used to you conducting your business in this way. And that's why, unless you're going from an intensely, paper intensive law practice and then you want to go completely digital in order to get the certification, that's not really the intention of how this works. This was attractive to me as a business owner, because when I first heard about it many years ago, I was at a conference and heard about B Corp, and Keep Cup, the company that we all know, was there, and they're a B Corp. And I heard about it, and it really resonated with me, because this is how I conduct my business anyway, around trying to support local businesses, around looking after my community around me and giving back, doing a lot of pro bono work, around how we engage with our clients, the ethical values that we held, how we treat staff, and the governance component of it. I thought, well, we're kind of doing this anyway, and these things are important to us. But even though we thought it was a natural fit, going through that process and looking at actually documenting, and this is the really good thing about this process, even though it's a bit arduous and it's pretty full on, is it makes you look at your systems and makes you document things, and it gets you to look at your back end from a bit more of an objective view, because people are looking in saying, okay, well, then you say you do this, where's your policy about that and your policy about this? And next time I'm up for recertification this year, I have to demonstrate that I'm actually doing these things, that it's not just policies for the sake of it. So sure, you might get people slipping through the cracks, but ultimately I've only had very positive feedback from it, and people want to know more about it. And because
Wow.
they know how you work and that this is you as a person and a professional and these are your values, it's only positive. For me, it's only been positive. I haven't heard of anybody, losing relationships with stakeholders or third parties over it, because you don't impose this on them. It's about how you do business.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So I just want to remind people today we have a second lawyer in the bar, which
Yeah.
is always an
Few too many.
challenge. Few too many, but anyway, we're enjoying it. But we do have Fotini Kypraios from Prisma Legal joining us today, just to talk about her experience with B Corp and how that has improved her business, but also how and just the reasons why she's engaging within B Corp. So just when you talk about the certification process, like, what are the steps in that? If someone wanted to say, "Oh, I'd love to do that," how much time would they need to sort of say, "Okay, if you're going to start on this process, you just accept it, that it will take you, X amount of time, and there will be a whole range of things that you will need to do, and it's not literally a box ticking exercise, and within a couple of weeks you've got it," because I know that it has taken you a while to go through this process. Just give us a bit of background on that, because I think for a lot of people, they think about it and then they realise how much work is involved, and then they go, "Yeah, no, I'll leave it for someone else."
I've met people that have said, "Yeah, we started it, and then I started it, and then I put it down. I went, can't do it. It's too much. Doesn't." The issue is that the assessment is one that's supposed to fit everyone, so it doesn't really fit anyone. It's a very broad, high level. It drills down into detail, but a lot of the things you might start it and think, this isn't really me. This isn't my business. I'm not a big corporation with 500 employees and and I don't have a waste management system and all these things. That's what I thought. And when I met Andrew Davies then at the conference a number of years ago, I actually waited for him like a groupie at the end of the conference. And I said, I'm a little law firm. I just started out. I said, I would love to do this, but I don't think this is for me, because, I don't have a board of directors. I'm a sole director. I mean, I'm a governance professional and I teach this stuff and I give advice to directors, but I've got I've got external advisors that I use in my business as an advisory committee, if you like. But a lot of this stuff doesn't fit. Can I do this? And he said to me, absolutely. A lot of really small businesses are B Corps, as well as a lot of really large ones. So what happens is you go through the assessment. It does take time, because you've really got to stop and think and potentially go back and look at the things you do and how you interact with stakeholders and community and etc. And then once you do the assessment, you submit it, and then you have this one-on-one time with an expert that actually goes through all of the questions with you and discusses with you. And then you can pick up points here and there, or you change your answers because you might have misunderstood the question. And they help you accurately reflect your business in the survey. So, for example, being a lawyer, I always take things too literally and go into a bit too much detail because that's the way my brain works. And she says, no, that question was supposed to be targeted at that issue. And so they help you get there. But if you don't get there, they say, right, here are the areas for improvement. You need to work on this and then come back. It's a real commitment.
So it's very collaborative from that point of view, that
Absolutely.
Their objective is to, I suppose, encourage more people to be involved in the B Corp community. So on the back of that, did you sense through that process that your business improved?
Yeah, I think I felt that it did, in the sense that the transparency, which really increased. So you lay it all out, and then it's really a matter of putting into practice the ideas and those ethical sort of standards, if you like, that you think you're walking the walk. When after doing this, it becomes a lot clearer about how much more you can do, because you've got to be really deliberate about what's your purpose, and you've got to be deliberate about creating impact, and not only for our clients as advisors, but with the people that work around us. And, for example, who we choose to do pro bono for. It's a very deliberate, targeted there's so many things you can allocate your time to. But it made us really think about, well, what's our purpose and what drives us to be a better business, to be better lawyers, to be better corporate citizens. And with the money that we make, how can we better, use that, not just about profit, but about how can we give back in a meaningful way? All of those things, I think, make us better business owners.
Again, we're just sorry, Alex. Let me just introduce again. We've got Fotini Kypraios from Prisma Legal joining us today, with 2 lawyers in the bar, with a financial advisor. Just talking about B Corp. It's just about B Corp. So, sorry, Alex, your question.
Do you find that new clients come to you who are also B Corps who want to do business with you because you're a B Corp and they share your values? Is it been a real upside in terms of accessing and being part of that community for your business?
Oh, look, absolutely. We've certainly had opportunities to work with clients who otherwise would not have crossed paths with.
Yeah.
But the really important thing is this, but I sort of have this mindset in terms of business development generally. When we first became certified, I looked up, because there's a directory and anyone can look up the directory. So it's really about a stamp, also about, that when you're doing business with a B Corp, that they've got these standards, okay? So it's an attractive proposition to go to a lawyer, an accountant, or an HR firm, or a retailer that's B Corp certified, because there's that certain substance behind it that speaks to your values. So when we first became certified, I sent 40 emails, because I thought, I want to meet more of these businesses. Now we had 20 or 30 coffees with people over the course of a number of months. There were a handful, though, that were like, oh, no, we've already got a lawyer, thanks. And then I responded saying, I'm not contacting you for your legal work. I want to meet you. I want to meet you and learn more about what you do, so that I can refer my clients to you, and that I can, recommend you to people that I know, because that's how we operate. We're very open and collaborative, and like sort of joining people together and connecting people. And then the guard came down, because lawyers, Alex, I don't know why we've got this reputation. Like...
Yes. You're very ethical. We just bill the living crap out of everybody. I'm very unethical.
Well, it's breaking down those stereotypes. But I met some extraordinary business owners and learnt about businesses that I'd never come across before. And so that was really valuable. But we've been approached by other B Corps to assist them with their legal needs as well. And they found us through the B Corp directory. So now that's my first port of call. I will go and look in the B Corp directory and see who's there, and you connect with them through certain social events, etc. But it certainly is a new network and a new sort of realm of opportunity. But the hard sell of going in, I'm going to become a B Corp to get new business, it's not the driver.
No.
To be honest with you.
Yeah, I understand.
But is the if you're doing work with other B Corps and it's acknowledged, does that support your recertification?
You can. It does count. Like, you can say that you do business with B Corps. From memory, because I'm recertifying at the moment, I'm not sure that you can get points for having them as clients. I can't remember. But for example, when Prisma Legal became a B Corp, I changed my bank and I became a customer of Bank Australia. Bank Australia is a B Corp. And I thought, you know what? We're going to shift across to a bank that, for the business, that's a B Corp, and that operates in the way that we wanted to walk the walk, essentially, to say, if we're going to do this and be certified and say that this is important to us, then our business banking is done through Bank Australia, for example. I for gifts for clients, I went through Keep Cup one year, and then the following year I did something else. And you can, there's lots of really interesting ways you can integrate the community within your business, as well as meeting some extraordinary people at B Corp events, companies like Who Gives a Crap, and companies like Whole Kids and Bellroy I've met recently at conferences. The underlying ethos is all about sustainability, community, ethical leadership, and really driving the business for a greater good rather than just for making money.
Is there a sense out there that there is a increasing momentum for businesses to, as more people become involved. And again, I think part of the discussion that Alex and I had is that I think it's a really interesting area, and I think this is an opportunity to continue to educate people about what is it. Are you sensing that there is a momentum?
Absolutely. It's growing pretty fast. There's the community is growing. We've hit 500 B Corps in Australia and New Zealand alone. And when you think there are 6,000 of them worldwide, it's a significant chunk. And B Lab Australia and New Zealand are doing a tremendous job in keeping up. There's a huge demand because people are seeing the value, and because it's quite a process, it weeds out the tire kickers, which is really important. And the recertification keeps us all on our toes. And it's also, I mean, I get very frequent email reminders about, have you checked your goals yet? Are you continuously improving? It's a very comprehensive system, if you like, because those who get tired of it or who don't keep it up or it's not a priority, you'll drop off because you won't it won't be something that you prioritize in your business.
Do you know what the statistics are on that? How often do people say join up, get certified, and then drop off or recertify? I mean, that sort of tells you something, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the percentages or the statistics around the attrition rate. I can see on through the B Lab Australia New Zealand on LinkedIn and their social media platforms, and through the B Corp community, there's a whole portal there of all the companies that are recertifying. And there are some that have recertified, 4 or 5 times already, or 6 or 7 times, the ones that were in Australia that sort of kicked everything off. And they're continuously improving, and it's a real celebration when you certify, because it's a real affirmation that you're continuously doing better. It's not a set and forget. So all of these things are good, really, really high level of credibility and integrity.
Yeah. Well, and how do things? The big question for me, and I'm very focused on profit. Right? I'm not embarrassed about it. I want to run a profitable business. Right? I think the cornerstone of a successful business is
money grubbing lawyer. Look at
you can't be a team. You can't train people. You can't get an office. You can't do anything, right? So and they say, okay, we're focusing on other things other than profit, and that's fine. But do you find that focusing on those other things does improve your profit, or do you find that it means that you actually have to sacrifice some profit? And that's the kind of common perception of, if I worry about things other than my profit will be reduced. And you might have many shareholders in your business, and maybe your shareholders aren't that keen on that. Maybe they are. Depends on their situation. But I often find that if you look after your clients well, then your profit should be looking after itself. Do you have a view on that?
Absolutely. I think profit's important to all of us that own businesses. We're all working to make money, and there's no hiding from that. I think that if you're B Corp certified and you're willing to invest in the process, it lifts your game. So for me, the business has continued to grow. I haven't sacrificed profitability or the perception of being a smart, corporate-minded, top-end of town, transaction-based commercial lawyer, because that's what I am, through to smaller businesses and not the not-for-profit stuff that I do, the governance training, and I do a lot of pro bono. So for me as a commercial lawyer, it's a perception issue, I think, right? So you're either, the greedy lawyer, or you're the left-wing working for nothing lawyer trying to save. That's not the case. So for me, it's about you can be professional and you can be at the top of your game and you can be making money and you can be servicing high-end clients and doing a really great job of that, whilst being ethical, having a purpose, looking after your people, looking after your clients, paying people properly and rewarding them, and looking after your environment and your community. I don't think that they have to be completely separate, or they have to be independent of one another. And that's been the great thing about B Corp certification. You can have it all and you can be both.
And I think to that point, I think for a lot of people, they're starting to see that. I can price my offering, whether it be a product or a service, and still pay people correctly and do things that that some people would say, oh, you're overly ethical. It's like, no, I'm just running a really good business. And I cannot do this on my own, so therefore I need some support. So I need to pay people to support me to do that, and I need to pay them appropriately for the work that they do. And I think that message is really starting to resonate with a lot of businesses out there. Do some people then challenge you on, oh, you're more expensive because you're going to be a B Corp?
No, because it hasn't made us more expensive.
They don't perceive it that way.
No, because
They think you're just doing all this extra work for free.
No, because priority in my business as a business owner is these things add to and enhance the way we already work. I haven't, morphed into a different business in order to fit into a B Corp mold. This is how these things are important to me. They're genuinely important to me. So, and the other thing that's really important to me is providing an exceptional value for clients. And so that means that I'm not the lawyer that charges for every second that I think about a matter walking my dog down the street. I never did that anyway. I'm the lawyer
meeting doesn't get started.
Yeah, I'm the lawyer that charges when I'm adding value. And if that means meeting with a client 1 or 2 or 3 times and spending I don't know how many hours understanding how I can add value and getting to know them in their business before I start charging, then that's what I've always done. It hasn't changed that. And I think it's about what value means to you. So this is why I go back to, if your business is genuinely, if your business decision makers, so for us, we run our own businesses, it's one mindset, it's our mindset, so it fits. If you're in a larger organization and B Corp certification is appealing to you, and you're going to be that champion that goes to the board or your chairman or whoever and says, I think this is a really good thing for us, and you have to win other people over. Sure, there's an investment of time, which and money to get there, but ultimately, the benefit that it has and the flow-on effects that it has throughout the psyche of the organization and your staff and your stakeholders, it can only elevate you. So I think that the cost benefit analysis, and even if you become a B Corp, and if your expectation is, well, now our revenue should increase by 30% because we've got a logo on our email footer, that's not how this works. It very well may, but that's not the return on investment. Is a longer term return, and it's reputation as well. So
well, you're seeing more and more people saying, I want to be able to either work for or engage with a business that is quite clearly articulating their purpose, or they have a sense that they do run. I mean, I know ethics gets thrown around a lot, but I do think that the band has been stretched too far in a point that it's not all about making the money. We've got to look, and I think we need to assess the way that we do engage as business owners and with our client base or customer base. We should be trying to do the right things, and we can still be really successful and have happy staff, happy customers, and a really good lives whilst doing what people would say, oh, you're doing too much, or I don't believe that we should be cutting corners to run good businesses.
One of the things that appeals to me, and the reason I asked the question about profit, is I think that's the main pushback you're going to get from business owners, or if you're trying to convince a board of directors, they're going to say, well, we don't want to potentially reduce our profit, or we want to increase it every year. But one of the things that appeals to me is that if you're doing this audit process, then you're having a much more robust, for free or for a minor cost, you're introducing a more robust management system to your business. And Dave and I talk a lot about that robust well-managed businesses are more successful on every measure, whether you're a small business or a large business. If you're making decisions in a kind of a robust way, you're looking after all your stakeholders and you think things through effectively, don't just make short-term decisions, then in the long run, and it might take a couple of years, but in the long run, then that's got to be better for everyone.
Yeah, I have never come across anyone, and listening to you, I'm thinking it never actually crossed my mind that becoming a B Corp or going through the process would impact profitability. If anything, it's almost a certain for me that this is such a huge value add that in the longer term, It's gonna show the world that we're serious about what we do and how we do it. Because whether you're a lawyer or an accountant or you're selling tea, it doesn't matter. If people are coming in and knowing they're dealing with an ethical business, and I can talk to someone and they see that this is who we are and this is what we believe in, it's a very appealing proposition for someone to have that confidence to say, I'm doing business with people that are doing good. And as you said, Dave, I don't think that making money it has to be, totally independent of having a purpose and actually practicing your craft well, but being transparent about it. And absolutely, we're here to make money, but we're here to also give back. And we understand that we're not in a vacuum. And we understand that question that you have both discussed, I've seen on your podcast many times, how much is enough and what do you want out of your life and how do we get there? And David and I have a lot of these discussions all the time. We can run ourselves ragged and and work ourselves into the ground, but at the end of our lives, and when you look back, and all these philosophical things, you think, okay, Fotini, that's nice and it's warm and fuzzy. But I really enjoy being a lawyer, and I really enjoy my relationships with my clients, and I love meeting people with a similar mindset. So I think B Corp certification speaks to all of those things, and because it is such a thorough process, and you've got really passionate people in business being part of this movement, because it's not just about doing business and using profit as a force for good. It's about trying to change the mindset behind our economy. What drives our economy and what should drive our economy? It's more than just our business and our profit. If we've got lots of people implementing these changes and stepping up and holding themselves accountable, it's about leaving behind something better than how we found it. And so this is...
Well, we function within society, don't we?
That's right.
We do function within society and we need to be part of society. And I think as part of that, it's taking that leadership position that sits within that as well. So I want to change tack a little bit in that we have the pleasure of Fotini Kypraios from Prisma Legal joining us today, talking about B Corp. And one thing that I want to touch on is this role of the inaugural chair of the B Council for B Lab Australia and New Zealand.
There's a lot of Bs. There's B Council.
A lot of Bs in there.
B Corp.
I want to hear what is the B Council and why did you get involved in it?
So the B Council is one of the constituent sort of components of the governance framework of B Lab Australia, New Zealand. And there's a group of us that were invited to join. There were a number of us invited to join this group over a year ago. So there's a number of us that were included in what we call the design phase. And so we've been working behind the scenes with the assistance, of B Lab and an extraordinary consultant who herded the cats. And those cats were, a super diverse range of ideas and perspectives, and from people that represent businesses of various sizes across Australia and New Zealand. So we met for over a year and we brought together and helped design a really unique new governance model. So B Lab's growing pretty fast, and the B Corp movement in Australia is growing really fast with 500 businesses certified. There's lots of businesses in the pipeline, and so that's bringing with it its unique growing pains, I suppose, and bringing with it a unique set of issues to think about. How do we now look at this movement and bring it together and coordinate it for the benefit of the B Corp community? So we're really lucky that B Lab and the board, the B Corp Australia board, have had the insight and the foresight to say we really need a governance model that's going to help us carry this sustainably, moving it forward. So that invitation was exciting for me as a governance professional to be able to contribute to that discussion and establish an unorthodox governance framework with them, which was tailored to have moving parts interacting within a much larger infrastructure. So rather than a traditional top-down approach, that hierarchical governance approach, our design phase ended up with a sort of an orbit model. So you've got the B Council that is invited to interact with the board. So we're a sounding board as well for B Lab, which is the management or organizational component of B Lab, the B Corp movement rather. So B Lab manages it, does all the operational work, and it's got a board. And then you've got the B Council that is a sounding board for one, consults with the other, and who is a voice for the B Corps, for the community. So we're completely independent. We've put together, it took us a year to pull together our charter. And so our remit now, this is the first year of actually being the B Council. So we've had our first meeting where I stepped up and chaired that meeting, and my peers selected me as chair, which was a lovely surprise and a huge honour. And so it was, David will talk to you about the no button in a minute, Alex. And it was a really great, the B Council is a really sort of, it's a whole organisation kind of model of governance. So we represent a group of businesses that have this certification in being their voice and their conduit up, but we also have a consultative role to play with the board. So the community is really diverse. It's increasing in size. We're within a global context as well, don't forget. So there's B Lab Australia, New Zealand. There's also B Lab Global. And so Australia and New Zealand are really leading the charge here with experimenting in this way and creating this really unique and innovative governance model, which we hope that will be copied all over the world. And so with this initiative has come this inclusion of a council whose role it is to challenge and consult and invoke discussions as well. So it's in its infancy. But we have got tremendous talent within the B Council. My colleagues on the council are an amazing group of people, and we're constantly testing and challenging each other and B Lab. And we've got a board member that sits in as well to really make them accountable to us so that we can be accountable, to the B Corps as well, so that we can really be said to be an independent voice whilst adding value upstream. We sort of got our toes in a couple of different pools, but we're orbiting and circling around whilst having our own charter. It's a
So
really
I've got this. I have this image in my head of a B Lab dog running around chasing its tail, trying to get into the.
It's an orbital model.
Yeah.
Orbital. I think it means it goes around and around.
Yeah. And I'm also hoping you. Yeah, I'm also hoping you got a good lawyer on to writing your good governance procedures.
Yes, I had a
question about your priorities, if you like. This might be a bit left of centre, but we, at the moment, say 20 years ago, environmental people were concerned about the environment, and now we're even more concerned about the environment. Probably climate change has become the really key thing amongst environmental issues. So how does B Corp sort of decide what being a good business looks like? And obviously that changes as people's understanding of social issues change. Poverty alleviation is important. Climate change is important. How do you work out, well, what are the standards we apply here? Transparency is important, but transparency in what sense? They're all quite difficult philosophical questions. Is that something that's voted on, or is there the kind of the B Corp God up there that decides that climate change is going to trump recycling this year, or how does that all? Because they're quite tough. What does being a good person mean? It means different things to different people, fundamentally, right? So how do you audit good people?
Well, it's really about, at the governance level, we're there to facilitate communication between a growing community and a board that's laying out that strategy and, B Lab. So that's our role sort of in that department and being consultative. But in terms of your question, the 5 areas that B Corps are assessed around, but that's employees, customers, governance, environment, and community. All of those are different for different B Corps. So, for example, as I said earlier, I don't necessarily trump the score for governance because I'm not there saying I've got a board of fully independent directors and this is how diverse I am and this is what I do, etc. I make up points in other areas. So it's very different for every business what they do.
Right. Okay. So yeah, you might be doing good in different ways.
That's right. But there are
Right.
initiatives, and depending on what's happening and what B Corps come together, there are initiatives that are run as a campaign, if you like, or as events. So, for example, recently there were B Corps actively working to reduce environmental impact and increase climate justice through fashion. So there was an online event held, and we learnt about the B Corps that have come together. And sometimes this is often led by the community. A number of them get together saying this is what we want to do. So they're looking at communicating how they're tailoring their manufacturing processes and prioritising transparency in their supply chains, how they're paying their employees fairly, how they're engaging stakeholders, how they're being conscious about waste-free fashion manufacturing because of all the landfill issues. So there you've got a group of B Corps where they're really passionate about something, and they've created a little movement, if you like, of an activity around something that's really important to them. It's really, the community belongs to the community. It doesn't belong to B Lab. And that's one thing I learned going through this governance process, that the intention of this by the powers at the top and the people that have put this together internationally and in Australia is they've created this community, but it's about the community to mobilize itself, and it's about B Corps to come together and make this what it will end up being. It's not about controlling that message, and it's not about dictating what should be important. And with that freedom comes that challenge in governance around, okay, you don't want to be prescriptive, but how do you give this whole process and maintain the integrity it's got while giving people a real voice about, what's important to them and how they think it should be done better.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you've got to be audited and you've got to pass the audit, right? So that's got to have objective tests, doesn't it? Or is that not right?
Well, when this recertification process tests you on, okay, it's like that you have to answer questions and provide evidence of what have you done towards, for example, in the environment section of that assessment. This is what you had done last time. How have you improved that? What are you doing to get there? Are you actively trying to improve your business in that sense? Now,
okay, it's very flexible.
It's the kind of thing you're measured against your own previous score. I'm not measured against.
Well, that's the framework, though, isn't it? When you start
I'm not
to
measured
look
against
at it from
Belroy,
that perspective, how do you kind of pick it up from there?
Pardon?
So you're almost but then also the question is, because I'm very conscious that we're at the very tail end, and it may mean that we need Fotini to come back to answer a few more questions. But who does set that sort of? I mean, Alex raised the point before. It's very subjective. Is there a point that sits there that says, well, we've agreed that this is the benchmark? Is that because the benchmark has been set on your first year, and then you have the recertification, which resets your benchmark because you've improved, and so therefore everyone has a different starting point?
You have to improve on your own previous score, so you're held to account. And so and in recertify, and even in the initial certification, it's you have to actually show what you're doing. So, for example, if I say that I'm in my business, I pay employees super over and above the statutory rate. So that's the policy, but do I do it? So I say I do this much pro bono. Do I do it? And so I'm holding myself to be accountable and opening up. That's where the transparency comes in, to actually make sure that I am striving to improve. And so that's where that self-regulation, I suppose, kicks in and makes it a more genuine and a more genuine process, I guess, because if it was prescriptive and we just had to tick boxes, then there's no real point. So you're held to your own standards, and if you get a really good score one year, that's fab. Next year, you've got to strive to do even better. And I'm sure as the B Council, I mean, we'd love to hear. We're very new out in B Corp world. So B Corps that also have feedback around those processes or around issues that are really important to them. We are now, the B Council is the conduit through which we can send that message up. and make sure that that communication keeps going up, so that the standards and certifications actually reflect, businesses' experience on the ground, because it's got to work on the ground. As with a lot of things in the legal world, Alex, I'm sure it's like using a template document. You can download things from the net, but it's got to actually work. It's got to fit. It's got to be tailored. You need that expertise. So it's the same thing. The certification initially is like a blank roadmap, and you're the one that puts the color and movement into the map as you go.
No, that's interesting. That's I was sort of thinking it was more an audit thing where you say these are the standards, you must comply with these standards, and I didn't like the sound of that. If you're really setting your own benchmarks and then trying to improve on that, I mean, I'd like to think that's something that a lot of business owners would be doing anyway, and perhaps if they aren't doing, they would like to be doing. So this is kind of helps them.
Puts a bit of rigor around it.
Do that. Yeah.
It's that minimum.
Right.
They certainly set a minimum standard, a threshold. And then once you get over that, then each year you've got to improve on your own results. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Fotini, thank you. That was fascinating. I know you and I have had multiple discussions on B Corp, but I certainly learnt a lot today. Is there anything that you wanted to kind of wrap up with as to close out our discussion for today?
I'd encourage everybody to have a close look at it. It's really a hugely beneficial thing for you as a business owner to actually, and even if you don't want to certify now, the assessment is online, and having a look at these standards and thinking about whether or not or how you can apply them in your business and whether or not you do is a really good starting point to sort of stepping out, which we often have to make time to do as business owners, and reflect and look at, well, how do I stack up against these targets? And is that then something that I can set as targets with a view to certifying in the future, and make it part of your strategy? Because as I said, it's going to be tailored. You don't have to, tick all the boxes at the top level, because massive businesses are B Corps that employ thousands of people, right through to Prisma Legal that's got, team members that fit on, the fingers of one hand, and we can all make an impact. I'm a little business, but, we punch above our weight, and we're doing, some really exciting stuff, and B Corp is one of those things. So it's if you're willing to make the commitment, have a look and see what it's like. And if anyone's got any questions, they can reach out to the B Council or feedback from existing B Corps, because that's what we're there to do. It's going to be an exciting ride with this B Council governance model.
Perfect. Thank you. Alex, would you like to add?
Oh, no, thank you. I just thank Fotini. That was a fantastic summary. It was real news to me. I had no idea that, other than I thought it was some sort of audit process, something to do with doing the right thing, which I sort of thought I felt like I did anyway. But I really like this idea that really it's about running a robust business in all the different areas, and making sensible, accountable, transparent decisions that are doing the right thing by all your stakeholders. I mean, you can't sort of argue with that. That's a winner.
Correct. All right. Well, thank you, team. The bar has been filled today, as we said, with 2 lawyers and a financial advisor, so that was always interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But we would like to thank Fotini Kypraios. She can be reached out at prismalegal.com.au or LinkedIn as well. Alex, I would like to say thank you for you today. Alex can be reached at Taurus Legal Management, and that is tauruslawyers.com.au.
And I'd like to thank Dave Murdoch, the wealth activist, for hosting today and for organising Fotini. And he can be reached at LinkedIn or at paxtonbridge.com. He's just a .com. The rest of us are .aus, but Dave's very international.
Thank you, team.
Thanks
Cheers.
for having me, gentlemen. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure.